So I've done a very brief series of videos about getting started in herbalism, and this will be the last video in that series. So far I've covered tinctures and how to get started with tinctures, teas and hot and cold infusions of plant medicine and how to work with those. And tonight I want to talk about sort of the spiritual essence of plant medicine, which I think is probably the most powerful aspect of plant medicine and what really draws all of us into this world of herbalism. So if you are interested in plant medicine, then I would guess that you are already being called by the plants to work with them. This was happening to me and I didn't realize it years ago. The first time I felt the call of the plants was when I was at my spiritual direction training, and one of the women in my cohort started talking about dandelion. She picked a leaf from the ground, hey girl, and she showed us the like ragged edges of the leaf, and she said, "Doesn't this look like a lion's tooth to you?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, it kind of does." And she was like, "Well, in French, dent de lion, dandelion, is the teeth of the lion." And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to know everything there is to know about that kind of, information. I want to know all the folklore. I want to know what the words mean. I want to understand this. And that feeling inside of me where I got like super excited, like that was my receptor for plant medicine. And I had no idea where that would lead me. That was in 2010 or something like that. And so I had no idea that 11 years later I would be, really deep in my studies of herbalism. So I really am convinced that the plants want to work with us. And, they've been on this planet longer than we have by a lot. And our bodies have evolved alongside of plants. They've been our medicine, our food, dye for our clothing. They've adorned our bodies. They've been part of the burial process of our dead. Like plants, they've made our clothing, created the structures that we live in. They're just a part of every single thing that we do. So they're really incorporated into what it means to be a human. We have sort of lost track of that, but the plants haven't. They have not lost track of their relationship to us, even though we've been forgetful. So if you feel interested in plant medicine, then I would venture to say that there's some part of you that is already hearing the plants, or that is already aware of a relationship that's a possibility between you and the plant world. One of the things I've been taught is that if you go to someone's house and you pay attention to the plants growing around their house, that will tell you something about the person that lives there. That the earth itself actually draws plants to that place that are medicine for you, or that are balancing to imbalances that are in your household or in that ecosystem. So the earth is constantly providing us with tools to reestablish wellness, whether we can recognize those tools or not. So that's like sort of the mystical part of plant medicine that I think is a huge part of plant medicine. And you can study with a dozen herbalists, and all of those herbalists are going to see plants in a slightly different way. We are all taught by the plants. We all have our own experiences. We might do similar things, or we might all agree that cinnamon is hot, but we will all use cinnamon differently in our practice because the plants are so unique in every human body and in every human's experience. So I encourage you, if you're really interested in herbalism, to read a lot of different authors, to watch a lot of different YouTube videos, to study with a lot of different teachers, because the more variety that you hear, the more you're like, oh, I can trust my own intuition, because we all hear and see and experience the plants in different ways. Part of what I love about the herbalism training I've had so far is this as above, so below. It's a hermetic principle or an alchemical principle. It comes out of old Europe, and it's mirrored in indigenous cultures too. But there's this belief that the plants are actually a manifestation of the energy of the planets. So there's this astrological component. So we're having a big astrological event tonight. It's new moon. There's a planetary stellium, where a lot of planets are in Aquarius. So there's this big sort of energetic shift happening right now. So that makes me think of the astrology of plant medicine even more. But there are solar plants like calendula that even kind of looks like the sun. And they're warming and they're ego edifying. And there are lunar plants like marshmallow that the roots are white like the moon and there's a lot of water associated with it. There are Martian plants like nettles. There are Saturn plants like comfrey. So the plants are ruled by the planets. And so when we start to really understand the sort of astrological influences over our constitution, over illness, then we can work with plants that embody those balancing astrological characteristics. So it's just a whole other world. Like there's a deeper well of mystical herbalism that's available to us as well. And that comes out of the alchemical tradition and specifically a medicine-making practice called spagyrics, where you actually preserve the salts of the plant's body in the medicine-making process so that you're, let's say you make a tincture that has the full spectrum of the plant's phytoconstituents, and it also has the salts of that plant that were boiled and then burned and then boiled again and then added back into the tincture. So the rabbit hole of herbalism is incredibly deep, it's incredibly mystical, it's incredibly ancient. So my advice to you, if you are feeling the pull of the plants, is to start right where you are. What plants are growing outside of your doorway? We have a lot of poke root that grows around here. So that might be a plant where I start. Maybe I'll look up poke. What planets rule poke root? What are poke medicines traditionally made to do? How have people worked with poke? What is the folklore around poke? And so then that plant, that one plant, becomes my doorway into the herbal world. My teacher now, Calix, talks about the green wall. When I started out in herbalism and I looked outside, I saw the green wall. Everything was green. I couldn't tell any plant from any other plant. I had no idea what I was looking at. Well, now I know what I'm looking at. That's torn. But now when I look outside in my yard, or if I'm driving or walking along the sidewalk, I see friends. I know who a lot of those plants are. Can you name one plant that you know? Is that a video?
Maybe.
Anyway, and that all started by that
Mom,
same
I
process.
know plant.
What?
Okay, so yes.
Just say one plant you know that's a friend.
Okay, trees.
Trees are a great example.
A maple tree.
Maple trees are a really great example. We have a couple of those, don't we?
And you.
Am I a tree?
Mm.
But I started out just in that way. Like I would see a plant, I would wonder what it was, I would research it, read stories about it, and over years I suddenly know a lot of plants. So this spring, as things start to green and bloom, pay attention to what's growing in your own yard. Maybe get yourself a Peterson Field Guide or an app like Plant Snap and start getting to know the plants around you so that your relationship with the plants can grow deeper. And then that opens up this whole other mystical world. You know, I've had plants come to me in dreams quite often, actually. I've done journeys to plants with Linda Felch of the Sacred Fire community in Southern York County. She leads meditative journeys where you meet the spirit of plants. There's just, it can be a very transformative and spiritual experience. Oh, and another way that we can really work with the spiritual essence of plants is through flower essences. So if you've worked with Bach Rescue Remedy or other flower essences, that is really the spiritual medicine of plants and how it helps to shift our thinking and our behavior in like a really subtle way. So if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. It's been fun making these little videos. And I hope you have a really beautiful new moon. And welcome to the Aquarian age. Can you say bye? You're just going to stick out your gum. Bye.